Yes, we got someone that's better at it than I am. Good morning. Welcome to, I should tell you, I'm Beth Conover. I'm your worship associate for this morning. Welcome to worship with the community of First Unitarian Church of Omaha. We're so glad you've chosen to join us for worship today, especially the visitors. Let's take a moment to welcome whoever is sitting next to you. This is when they lose. Ooh, he who must be obeyed. This congregation works hard to be an inclusive community that listens, engages, inspires, and acts. Our mission is to foster the whole person with compassion and justice. We are on many journeys, but together we are one church. We are a community of all ages and abilities with a rainbow of gender and sexual identities and diverse cultural and class backgrounds. We draw from many sources of inspiration and share common liberal religious values. Love is the spirit of this church, whoever you may be. We welcome you to bring your whole self into this beloved community. We also affirm that this church occupies the traditional treaty lands of the Omaha and Otoe, Missouri tribal nations and express respect to the Northern Ponca, Winnebago, and Santee Sioux tribes. Mary Kay does a better job of that than I do. We invite everyone to support local causes, charities, and the rights of Indigenous people. And now, Rick, our prelude. We are lucky enough to have an organist, I'm sure you've noticed. Isn't it glorious? So lovely to hear our organ being played again. Next, we light the chalice, the symbol of our faith. I'd like to invite Marisa Lachuk up to do so. I would recommend that. Spark of the Spirit, cupped in earth's embrace, light of love, alive in all creation. As we kindle this flame, we rekindle our connection to the sacred web of life. And in addition, we will light the sabbatical candle. This is the 13th week of our minister's sabbatical, and we trust that this candle will light her way back to us in November. She looks like she's about to take a road trip to see beautiful places, so we wish her the best on that. We have one announcement, Reverend McCarty, before you move into your part. Sarah, do you want to come up and? Sorry that I had it.
Hi, it's me again. This week, the Rev Dennis is going to help us reflect on finding hope and resilience in choppy waters. And that might be a reminder for us that even small acts of generosity can ripple outward into the community in powerful ways. And we are also thankful for the generosity of everyone in the connection to our annual Heart and Hand auction. So I'm just up here to show my face and say that after the service, I'm downstairs during coffee hour at my little auction table, and I have brochures available that tell you how everything is going to go this year. I have donation forms if you'd like to donate anything to the auction. We also have volunteer sign-ups if you'd like to give a little of your time. And we're selling 50-50 raffle tickets for $1 each. Half of that pot is going to go to one lucky winner, and the other half is going to go to the church. If you participate in any way, even if you just attend our fun party on the 24th, you're helping create a stronger, caring, and joyful congregation. So I hope to see many of you in any of those ways, and we'll make this year's auction a success again. Thank you.
By golly, I'll add an announcement. In case you have not yet heard the news, movie night has been moved to 6 o'clock on Tuesday evenings, and Tuesday evening's movie will be French director Jean Cocteau's Beauty and the Beast, La Belle et la Bête, which is one of the most gorgeous movies ever made. For black and white and for 80-year-old special effects, it's pretty amazing. You're invited. And now, what should we worship? Let us not worship things that break unless perhaps we worship one another's hearts. Let us not worship temporary things unless perhaps we worship the love that arises between loving, temporary human beings. Life comes and then it goes. Is that not itself the human key to transcendence, that on a planet which long after each of us departs and decays will itself be consumed by our sun, grown bloated in its own self-devouring old age? And yet, still, we can exalt the greatness of it all, the marvelous, fragile impermanence of it all, and look into one another's eyes and see the thing which most echoes forever is the caring we extend, is the loneliness we ease, is the love and justice we strive for in the time we have. Those echo and shine, calls to be answered, stars to steer by, leaving behind a kind of sweetness that drifts through the ages, precisely because we passed this way. Come, let us worship together. And I invite you to stand as you're inclined and able and sing hymn number 95, There Is More Love Somewhere.
Each week, half of the loose currency in the offering plate is donated to a local cause so more people can do more good. Our Share the Plate recipient for September is Nebraska Abortion Resources, empowering Nebraskans to make informed reproductive decisions by providing autonomy, justice, and equality. Equity, actually. the part of our service devoted to care and centering. Joys and concerns, I want to remind everyone that there's a book at the back of the church where you can share your joys and concerns. We'll convey these out loud and make them a part of our community and worship. And for those who don't wish to share out loud, you're welcome to place a stone in the collective chalice in the front and join silently with others in the community. Those watching online can put items to be shared in the comments to be read aloud. Go, whatever you wish to play.
From Doug Lee Regier, saying, with a joy, grateful to have the service live streamed today. Thank you to the AV staff. To which Jake replied, our pleasure, Douglas. Thank you for watching. And so, let's have a big round of applause for our AV tech person. Great. Joy and concern from, have you heard about the nonpartisan paperclip protest? See Linda Parker in the common room after a service is over. Learn about the paperclip protest and receive a free paperclip. I have no idea what this is about. Well, sounds interesting, though. It sounds interesting. All right, and from Melissa Gibson and Diana Bird, saying thank you to all the hosts and guests who participated in Circle Supper last night. Let's give a round of applause to everyone who helped making it a success. Special thanks to Carolyn McNamara for coordinating.
Is this about the Circle Supper?
Yeah.
We had a special call out to Tom and Janet. Must have been a wild, wild dinner. Thank you so much. Anything else? I want to call out Frank Wagner. What would we do without the Wagner McNamaras, who built the choir, a new thing that would have been worth billions to store our music and folders. Thank you, Frank. Yes, of course. Kindly offered up their beautiful apartment for Dr. McCarty. I am really going to digress and tell you that if anyone has questions about Tylenol or acetaminophen in pregnancy, I now am reaching over 100 on answering them on the national hotline we run on what's safe in pregnancy and breastfeeding. And it's a free hotline, and you could get the family and friends discount by saying you know me. Okay, moving along. That would be you, Reverend McCarty.
We have diversity of music this morning. I thought I'd bring a musical reading allied to the sermon topic this morning. I'm sort of the trained seal act following the ballerina. We'll see how this goes. This song is actually, I have kind of a schizophrenic relationship with country music. Some country songs I would never care to hear again. Some of them are just full of wit and wisdom, and this is one of them, in my opinion. A poet and humorist, Shel Silverstein, wrote it, long time ago, 50 years ago. It's about perception. That hulk of a man with a beer in his hand, he looked like a drunk old fool. And I knew if I hit him right, I could knock him right off of that stool. But everybody, they said, watch out. That's Tiger Man McCool. He's had a whole lot of fights, and he's always come out a winner. Yeah, he's a winner. But I'd had myself about 5 too many. And I walked up tall and proud, and I tapped his back, aware of the fact that he had never stooped nor bowed. And I said, Tiger Man, you're a pussycat. And a hush fell over the crowd. I said, let you and me step outside and see who's the winner. Well, he reached out with one big hairy hand, and he braced against the wall, and slowly stood up from that bar, and my God, that man was tall. He said, son, I can see you're a scrapper. So just before you fall, I'm gonna tell you all you're gonna gain by being a winner. He said, you see these bright white shining teeth? Well, you know, they're not my own. Mine rolled away like chiclets down some street in San Antone. But I left that person cursing, nursing 7 broken bones. And he only broke 3 of mine. That makes me the winner. Behind my chin, I've got a steel pin that holds my jaw in place, a trophy of my most successful motorcycle race. And each morning when I wake up and touch this scar across my face, it reminds me of all I got by being a winner. Now this try that again. Now this broken back was the dying act of handsome Harry Clay. That sticky Cincinnati night I stole his wife away. That woman, she gets ornerier and meaner every day. But I got her, boy. That's what makes me a winner. You have to speak loud when you challenge me, son, because it's hard for me to hear. With this twisted neck and these migraine pains and this big old cauliflower ear. And if it weren't for this glass eye of mine, why, I'd shed a happy tear. To think of all you're gonna get by being a winner. I got arthritic elbows, son. I got dislocated knees from picking fights with thunderstorms and charging into trees. And my nose been broke so many times I might lose it if I sneeze. And son, you say you still wanna be a winner? Well, you remind me a lot of my own younger days, with your knuckles a-clenching white. But son, I'm gonna sit right here and sip on this beer all night. And if you think you got something to gain or prove by winning some silly-ass fight, okay, I give up, I lose, you're the winner. Well, I stumbled from that bar room, not so tall, and not so proud. And behind me I still hear the hoots of laughter from the crowd. But my eyes still see and my nose still works, and my teeth are still in my mouth. And you know, when I sit down and reflect on these things, that kind of makes me the winner! That's dry work. This is Cornhusker football country, so I hope folks get me if I describe this sermon as an audible at the line of scrimmage, i.e. a last-minute change in plans. I had scheduled my service topics months ago. I like to plan ahead. And the original topic for today was the racism of D.W. Griffith's 1915 Civil War epic, The Birth of a Nation. That's a weighty topic, and last week I decided that national events are so weighty these days, I needed to address that rather than adding even more weight. But nothing is lost. If you're interested in D.W. Griffith, you can read that sermon as a blog post on the church's website. It's worth checking out. But for now, in this religious community, let us be together in a mutually caring way that does not deny the harsh realities of current events, but also steps back and tries to put them in what we might call spiritual perspective. It does seem as though the world just sucks these days. These are difficult times. Sometimes it's tempting to see these times as the failure of religious liberalism. I don't think I really understood on a gut level what doom scrolling meant until this year. Doom scrolling is, of course, continually scrolling through your news feed, growing ever more dismayed by all the bad news. And I don't think it's helpful to pretend that bad news doesn't exist. On the other hand, if we fixate on doom scrolling, I think we just become more miserable and less able to help ourselves or others. So it helps to step back and gain some distance, I believe. The bigger the picture, the smaller both good news and bad news become. And I also think it's helpful to remember that our own cultural conditioning can color our assessment of current events. And I've found myself doing that. I'll give you an example from my own past, how someone's personal history can shape what we think we see. Way back when I was 20, my favorite cousin used to work with a hotshot local stock car driver. I'll just call him Mark. And every Saturday night would find myself and my girlfriend out at Salt Lake City's stock car track watching the circle burners. And when I started attending that first summer, Mark was leading the season standings in his class, but he didn't have a big money sponsor, so the last month of the season, another driver started to catch up. Mark clung to his points lead through mechanical difficulties and accidents until the very last points race of the season, when the other fellow caught him and won the season championship just by a whisker. Mark finished second. I don't know how he felt, but I was really disappointed. The next season, another hotshot driver with a good sponsor moved into Mark's class, and by that time, Mark never even tasted the points lead. Mark was an excellent driver, but his car was cheaper. It just wasn't as quick as this other fellow's car, and Mark finished second again. Meanwhile, I graduated from college, got married, and went into the Coast Guard. Right after I left home, Mark picked up a big money sponsor of his own who built him a new car and entered him into the top division, what's called super modified sprint cars. And Mark had an excellent rookie season and then won the track championship the next 2 years in a row. He had the chance to win 3 straight track championships, a record, and better than that, he drove a winter race down in Phoenix, Arizona, and got spotted by a car owner with a national tie-in. This fellow offered Mark a ride in a USAC car, the United States Auto Club. And back in those days, USAC was best known for sanctioning the Indianapolis 500. Mark had a shot at auto racing's biggest event, and then he got hurt in a racing accident at the local speedway. Basically, the accident damaged his neck, not so badly that he lost any function, but he had to quit racing to prevent further damage. Just over age 30, when other drivers are just hitting their prime, Mark was washed up. Now, to me, I saw Mark as a heartbreaking case of this much. He'd missed winning his division by this much those first 2 years. He'd missed winning 3 straight track championships in the super modified division by this much. He'd missed a shot at running in the Indianapolis 500 by this much. And then as it happened, I wound up working alongside Mark a few years after that, and to my surprise, I learned that as far as he was concerned, he'd never missed anything. He'd enjoyed himself, he'd won a lot of races and a lot of trophies. He thought he'd had a great career. And at first I was suspicious that he was just covering up the hurt. But after a while, I realized that no, he was happy with that part of his life. Now it was over, and he'd taken up fishing, which he also really enjoyed. And sometimes I would hear a mutual acquaintance say of him, "Yeah, that Mark, he's what you call a winner." Now, I've had a lot of years to think about that, a lot of years, particularly in light of my own thoughts about my career as a novelist. It kind of parallels Mark's career as a race driver. I decided at age 7 I wanted to become a novelist. That was my dream. And I did get some novels published in my 30s and 40s by Ballantine Books, the paperback arm of Random House. But my career fizzled out after a while. Agents and publishers stopped returning my phone calls, and the feeling I had toward the end when I realized my publisher was giving me the cold shoulder was that I'd gotten so close. I was just like Mark in my mind, not his, and I'd missed my shot at the big time by this much. That was before I got interested in ministry. But I did get interested in ministry, and in one of many classes I took at theological school, we studied something called a genogram. Now basically, a genogram is a way of diagramming a family tree and how behavior patterns get passed down from one generation to the next. And to my surprise, as I charted out old family stories, I found one particular pattern out of several on my mother's side of the family, generation after generation, as far back as anyone in that family could remember, which was clear back to the mid-1800s, there was this pattern of people thinking they had just missed, that they had failed by this much. A great-grandfather had just missed being governor of Nevada. One of his sons just missed being rich with a silver mine. Great aunts had just missed, and uncles had just missed. The word almost had been ingrained on that side of my family for 4 generations, and those were just the stories that got passed down to me. What that genogram showed was that I had been preconditioned by 4 generations of family dynamics to look at myself as having failed by just this much. So naturally, I saw both my friend's racing career and my own literary career as having just missed. And when I really stopped to think about it, I realized that I had been trained not to appreciate anything I ever accomplished in my life, but only to brood over what I hadn't quite accomplished. And of course, you probably already know there is no way you're going to win that game. For the record, Mark was quite impressed by my writing career. He and I could look at the exact same event, and where I saw a near miss, he would see unmitigated success. The only difference between success and failure was the thinking in the mind of the person making the judgment. So what I'm trying to get a handle on here is that we may not judge good or bad times totally objectively either. We may just judge them according to our cultural conditioning and the way we've been trained. Now, that is not to try to claim that lying, violence, and oppression are not lying, violence, and oppression, but it is to claim that we should never underestimate the depth and resilience of human nature, including our own human nature. There's also another thought. In the broad scope of things, it's impossible to accurately sum up the whole direction of our culture, our nation, and our world. Because by the time the full impact of current events is played out, we're dead. We don't get to see how the whole story turns out. That's the human condition. Consider this life. A particular Asian scholar. This fellow's father died when he was just 3 years old. He grew up poor. He was an active youth, though, and a good student. He had a lot of faith in his own abilities. He believed he was destined for great things, that he was capable of becoming a high government official, and when he did, he vowed he would bring order, peace, and prosperity to the world. And he did hold a few minor government posts over the years, but nothing that challenged his talents. So he became a teacher, a good one. Still, he dreamed of getting a high appointment from some ruler, and then he would reform society. And finally, a local lord did appoint this fellow to a high post, but it turned out to be purely honorific. It had no actual power at all. The years went by. His students adored him, but his dream of rebuilding society faded and died. And he accepted his failure with good grace. Sometimes he even made fun of himself, but there was no doubt it really hurt. And he died at age 72, a failure in life. His students called him Kung Fu Tzu, Kung the Master. We in the West have Latinized his name to Confucius. It was only after his death that his adoring students successfully spread his teaching, making him the dominant figure in East Asian culture. Now, I doubt any of us can judge our own times in the big picture any better than Confucius did. A Unitarian Universalist theologian, Sharon Welch, of whom I'm quite fond, writes, and I'm quoting, "What we know, though vast, rests on shaky foundations, and furthermore, as we attempt to ascertain the effect of our actions, we are challenged to keep in mind the law of unintended consequences. Unintended consequences. Our actions, no matter how carefully thought out, have unpredictable ramifications, multiple consequences for good or ill, and often for both." Close quote. There are small victories, even in the worst situations. I suggest we need to watch for them and let them feed us. That kind of perspective, I think, can be a vital survival technique in hard times. For example, talking about surviving in really horrendous times, Jewish German linguistics professor Victor Klemperer kept a diary of his life as a so-called privileged Jew in Nazi Germany during the Hitler regime. Being privileged meant that he and his ethnically German wife only had to worry about starving to death rather than outrightly being sent to a Nazi death camp. And I go back to his book every once in a while because in pondering his own desperate circumstances, Klemperer often addresses the human condition in helpful ways. For example, on the morning of September 27th, 1944, he was at a real low point. Germany was badly losing the war, and there was a serious food shortage. And this was bad enough for non-Jewish Germans, but for Victor and Eva Klemperer, at the bottom of the economic and social ladder, it meant that at one point they were literally starving to death. And on the morning of September 27th, 1944, though, he was worrying less about starvation than about failure. I have published nothing for 12 years, he writes. I've been unable to complete anything, have done nothing but keep this diary, record, and record. Is there any point to it? Will any of it ever be published? And if it is completed, and if it is successful, and if I survive through my work, so to speak, what is the point of it all for me? I shall go on reading and taking notes, not because I'm so full of energy, but because I am unable to do anything better with my time. Now, those are the words of a man facing down life's evils in a profound way and at risk of totally giving in to despair. Now, here's what we read on the very next page, something that happened just a few hours later that same afternoon. He writes, "Our neighbor Frau Kohn has an acquaintance who asked about me. At the university, she said, I once attended a wonderful lecture on Dante given by a Professor Klemperer. Is it the same Professor Klemperer? And I responded that I was the same professor, only 23 years older. And now today, Frau Kohn brought a large bag of apples, and the woman friend had asked her whether things were as short at the professor's as at the Kohns. Yes? Well, then she should present him with these apples from an unknown well-wisher, Dante apples, as it were, late fruits. Let us not underestimate the power of caring, of human connection, even in the most evil of times. On a forgotten day, far in his past, Klemperer had touched another human being without even realizing he had done it. He had left her such a memory that 23 years later, she sent the Klemperers a life-saving bag of apples. And we may debate the nutritional value of apples, but at that time, when the Jewish German Klemperers were not even allowed to buy food, it was the difference between life and death. Excuse me. It's natural for any human being to ponder the meaning, the effect of our own life and times. But a great frustration of the human condition is that we can never answer that question ourselves. And what's more, anyone who insists on looking at the human condition just in terms of success or failure, winning or losing, is probably betting on a rigged game. None of us comes out of an empty void. We are all the products of particular subcultures and particular families within our culture. In my case, I was preconditioned by my upbringing to see the world in terms of what I didn't accomplish. Whether I achieved some particular thing or not, I didn't have any way to recognize success even if I was in the middle of it. When I studied Zen Buddhism in South Korea many years ago, the Dharma teachers cautioned us to not even go to that place, good or bad, winning or losing, success or failure. To do so is to become lost, either in the past or in the future, and there's only the present. Or as they put it, because life is filled with suffering, just being born is the worst mistake you could ever possibly make. After that, all other mistakes are tiny by comparison. So there is only life. Success or failure are things we make in our own mind. In Zen terms, they're errors in judgment. Nothing is permanent. Fortunes are won and lost, records are broken, citadels collapse, empires fall. As Victor Klemperer could tell us, the 1,000-year Nazi Reich lasted just 18 years. We are born, we live, we love, and are loved, we die, and others mourn for us. Old racetracks become parking lots and office buildings. Old trophies are lost or discarded. Old novels turn yellow and fall into dust and are replaced by DVDs and video games, which disappear in their own time. And this is no matter for sadness. Rather, it is food for rejoicing, whether we choose our role in life or not. Each one of us is a splendid metaphor in the endless poem of the cosmos. My life and your life will continue to have meaning, however venal or perfidious national leaders happen to be. To mix a metaphor, the mills of the gods may grind slowly, but times will change. The meaning of my life lies not in erecting some intellectual edifice of my own or in powerful politicians suddenly figuring out how to behave themselves. Rather, the meaning of my life lies in the child I hugged this morning, in the laughter I share this afternoon, in the tear I weep for a departed friend this evening. All are good, and mystic atheist though I am, I might even allow that all are holy. Amen, and blessed be. And I invite you, thank you, I invite you to close our service by rising as you're so inclined and able, and joining in hymn number 143, Not in Vain, the Distant Beacons. They may be new words, but you will definitely recognize the melody. It's Beethoven's Ode to Joy, to be exact. May each of us know the particular light and vision and God and universe which lie within each, our particular heart, our particular way of seeing. May this lend us strength in times of powerlessness. May it lend us joy in times of hopelessness. May each of us know peace and love and fulfillment in ways we never anticipated. As we go from this place, may the glow of love and enlightenment guide our way, and may the rhythm of our footsteps soothe and bless the earth so long as we walk upon it. Shalom, salam, blessed be, and amen.